Hey, this is Cooking School with Chef Joel, and today we're making Birria Chimichanga. So, last time we spun the wheel. For next week, we're gonna make chimichanga. All right. So, I wanted to do the best chimichanga. So we're doing birria. I actually made my own birria. I'm gonna show you that in a second. We're gonna make charro beans, which is actually a recipe my dad used to do. Pinto beans cooked with bacon, onions, garlic, and then we're gonna use a little bit of beer. And then we're gonna do a little Mexican rice. So it's gonna be the birria, the Mexican style rice, the charro beans wrapped up, and then the whole thing that makes a chimichanga is it's a burrito that's deep fried. So we're gonna fry it, but since we're doing birria, we're gonna do the queso birria style. We're actually gonna cook it in the fat that comes off of the birria itself. So it's actually the fat that's rendered out plus Wagyu beef fat that I use to cook it, so it's gonna be killer. So let's get started. The first thing we're gonna do, because it's gonna take some time, is we're gonna cook the rice. We want a nice fluffy rice. And you don't wash rice because it's dirty. You wash rice because it's covered in starch, kind of a powdery starch on the outside. So you wanna get that starch off, because that's gonna make it sticky in the end. Kind of a big pot here, but that's going to be okay. Now, for Mexican rice, really all you need is just kind of a tomato broth. I made this here. This is actually nothing more than just pureed tomato and a little bit of our vegetable stock. Doesn't need to be too much more complicated than that, but I'm going to add some more flavor to it. So this is our birria spice that I used to season the meat yesterday. This is guajillo peppers, black pepper, cumin, coriander, cinnamon. We're going to make sure it tastes good, so we're going to add a nice pinch of salt to it. Maybe 2 spoons of the sauce. This is a chipotle sauce. You ever see those chipotles in adobo sauce? So we want to add some of that spicy, chili, smoky kind of flavor in there. So we're going to go ahead and just stir all that seasoning around. You can go a little bit more than 1-to-1, but we're going to keep it just about exactly 1-to-1 by volume here. That was about how much rice we use. That's about how much liquid I'm going to use. Keep the rest of that tomato broth later because we're going to use that for our consommé. The next thing I want to do is strain the birria. So I cooked this last night. I cooked it for about 3 hours, let it sit overnight, warmed it back up today. So you can see there's that thick layer of grease on the top. That's all the fat that's rendered out of the meat, and it's some Wagyu beef tallow that I used to actually sear it in the first place. I wanted all that flavor to go in there, so it's going to be nice and beefy. So I want to strain off the liquid, because the liquid is our consommé. I want to separate the fat from the consommé so I can fry the burrito in it later. And then the meat, we're gonna shred it up and it's gonna be delicious. So in this, the meat that I cooked was chuck roast and beef shank. You can see some bones in there. The beef shank just adds so much extra flavor and body to it. So I wanna separate as much of that liquid out as I can, and then the beef, this beautiful tender beef right here. This is the birria that we're gonna use. And then the shank cooks down really nice and tender too. All right, so the next objective now is to separate all of the broth from the fat from the top. So I'm gonna pour this into a pot right now. So all that fat and everything's all mixed together. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put it on the stove at very, very low heat, and it's gonna cause all that grease to separate from the consommé, and we're gonna ladle it off the top very gently until we can separate it from each other. A little bit of grease in your birria consommé is not such a bad thing, because especially when you're making birria, all that flavor of the spice and everything kind of gets soaked up into the beef fat too. But we're going to use that to fry our burrito later, so that's going to be amazing. Kind of swirl around it and use the ladle on the outside just to try and extract just nothing but that fat from the top. And that's kind of the basic method for doing it. And the longer that this sits on a low heat, the more of that fat that's going to come out of the top. So now we're going to do charro beans. So I put the bacon in a dry pan here because what I'm trying to do is render out all of that grease, all the fat from the bacon. And then we're going to let the bacon cook down, get a little crispy. We're going to add some onions to it. We're going to kind of caramelize the onions a little bit. Add our pinto beans, deglaze with some beer, seasonings, pinch of oregano. Got charro beans. Now we got our onion going in, just after we got a little nice golden brown on the bacon. There's our birria spice seasoning just to give it some good flavor. now we've got beautiful aromas here. We've cooked this to the point where everything is so caramelized that it's gonna start to burn if I keep cooking it. So I got as much flavor as I can get out of that. So we're gonna add our pinto beans in here. This is just canned pinto beans. I'm gonna add a little bit of our tomato broth in there from earlier to help give it a little more consistency. And last but not least, gotta put a beer in. Probably not the whole beer, save some for me. This is actually a pretty strong beer too. This is an IPA, so it's gonna have a lot of bitterness to it. So our rice is cooked here. Just gonna kind of stir it up a little bit. Kind of a basic Mexican rice, so nothing wrong with that. So I'm just gonna put some gloves on here and I just wanna shred this meat apart so we got a nice, so we've got different cuts in here. This is a piece of the shank that just adds all that great flavor in there. We've even got some marrow left inside the bones of the shank. We're gonna use that. That's nothing but flavor. Look how tender that meat is. Ready to cook this thing? Oh, it fits. All right. Oh, this is perfect. This is perfect right here. All right, let's give it a little quarter turn here. We're gonna get it nice and crispy all over. So I'm gonna baste it with some of that hot oil. You can see it kind of sizzling up on top. Oh, look at that crispiness. Look at that crispiness. Let's see how much this burrito weighs.
Mamma mia.
2 pounds. Oh, it's
Almost 3.
it's almost 3 pounds. I'm gonna finish this in the oven for just a few minutes. If I can get it extra crispy on the outside. Jalapenos, cilantro, onions, tomato. Look at what I've created. There's only one thing left to do. Oh my God, look at that. That's ridiculous. Oh, the flavor, the birria, the beans, the rice. Put a little pepper jack cheese on there. All right, let's do this. God damn. That's amazing. The flavor from the spices and everything is soaked into the tortilla. That's an amazing birria chimichanga.